Chapter 4: Destruction, Dream, and Learning to Listen. Sometime in early August, I had a most interesting dream in which I was standing at the south end of a long valley. I knew the valley ran north to south because the sun had just come up to my right over some mountains and was not very high in the sky. On my left were smaller mountains that didn't seem to have as much foliage on them. At the time, I was not sure exactly where I was, for the surroundings were destroyed and changed enough to make it hard to identify features. As I looked up the middle of the valley, all I could see was broken cement and twisted metal. I knew that the destruction had just happened, but I was unsure of the cause. My first thoughts were that this looked like Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but I could see no mushroom cloud to indicate a nuclear explosion. In fact, the sky looked totally clear. There was no smoke or fires coming from the rubble. I was so surprised that I could see no dust coming up from the falling of these structures, and I assumed the dust must have already settled by the time I was viewing this. Far down the valley, I could still see nothing but flattened buildings. After the dream was over, I realized that there were no people in this dream. I felt that they were there, but I didn't see a single one. I then heard a voice say, "This is October 10th. The date stuck in my mind because it was only 2 days after my oldest son's birthday. I waited to hear an indication of what year, but it was never given. For the next year and a half, I thought the valley I was looking at was Salt Lake Valley from the north end. But when I moved to Payson, Utah in February of 1995, I began to wonder if the valley that I was shown was actually Utah County, looking north from the hill about 200 yards from our home. It fit the dream as well as the Salt Lake Valley, but still that part was not clear enough to make a definite identification. The clearest part was the date, which I still feel will transpire in the not too distant future. Exactly why I was shown this particular dream, I cannot say. Many times I have tried to figure things out only to find that it is better to set the dreams aside and let them unfold in their natural way. It reminds me of the statement, "Let go and let God." As you read on, you will see that my life story includes many dreams and visions. These dreams and experiences are woven together in a rather complex manner, but I have tried hard not to use them to make life-changing decisions. They have been more assistance in looking at myself and seeing how I would react if placed in a particular situation. I have learned to gauge the accuracy of them by their intensity or realness. This dream of destruction was one of the more real ones that I have ever had. At the time, it seemed very vivid, but I had nothing to judge it by because this was the first of its kind, and it happened so early on my path. Since then, I have had many dreams that have had definite meanings, and as we progress, you will see that these dreams foretold events that had significance in my life. During this same period of time, I began to develop a method that I found helpful in receiving revelation or answers to prayer. I share it now to help you grasp of why I walked my particular path. Many people have asked me how I talk to God or how I know that He is talking back, and not just God, but any other entity that doesn't have blood running through it. Mine is just one method of many, but because it served me so well in the beginning, I used it continually until I found myself doing it without any conscious effort or without knowing it was happening. Where this idea came from or how I came up with this technique, I honestly cannot say. Perhaps it has been with me for countless ages, or I may have picked it up in my sleep. Whatever the answer, it has worked well for me, and this method is so easy that anyone can learn it. To start with, you must believe that the spirit world is real and that you can be spoken to just as people in the Bible or prophets of old were spoken to. If you do not have this basic belief, it will be pointless for you to try this exercise. What you receive you will not believe, and your efforts will be futile. Soon you will dismiss the experiences and in time even forget that you have had them. For this reason, there is little harm in learning this method. A little further along, we will discuss learning how to discern those who wish to talk to you. For now, try to exercise just a small belief that what I am telling you is the truth. Or if you can't even go that far, at least believe that it is true for Mike Rigby. And even if by plowing through this, you can visualize the broader picture of what I am trying to explain. In its simplest form, this is nothing more than a two-way communication between you and another individual. If we take a few words from the Bible and assume for a moment that they are true, you should be able to see that God wants to communicate with us. James, the apostle of Christ, said, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not." James chapter 1, verse 5. Let's break this down for a moment. If any, who is not included here, to me this means that everyone is on equal ground with respect to asking of God. No one will be turned down, for he giveth to all men liberally. This being the case, no color, race, or religion affiliation is a prerequisite for receiving from God. Logic alone will tell us that if God is truly a God of unconditional love, then he can place no condition upon that love or the dispensing of it to his children. This also holds true for hearing his voice or for his giving liberally. To those who want to put God in a box and say that he was to do it like this or that, I say you need to experience God for yourself, and your perspective on how he works will change drastically. And then let everyone experience God for themselves in their own way. I cannot emphasize enough how open God is to all people and how desirous all those on the light side are to help us progress. Those who find comfort or security in the Bible or the way Jesus said it should remember Jesus' words when he was talking about his Father, and he asked this question. Matthew chapter 7, verses 9 through 11. Or what man is there of you, who if his son ask bread will give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish will give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him? It is important here that you put behind you the idea that you are not going to get an answer or that you are not worthy. God will answer you. Now, if we can get those two stumbling blocks behind us, he does talk to all and all are worthy. Let's proceed to develop a way to communicate or listen. When you close your eyes, where are you? Not just the physical you, but the mental you, or the spiritual you, the part that does the thinking. What happens to that part of you, your personality, when you close your eyes and are no longer able to concentrate or focus on the environment around you? Now, close your ears or stop listening to the outside noises as well. If you need to put earplugs in or earmuffs on, do that. Stop the external distractions. I ask this question, where are you? Because for me, it is relative to how I see myself from a spiritual perspective. As I close my eyes, I am just behind where my eyes are physically located on my body. In other words, the thinking part of me is situated someplace close to the middle of my brain. When I first started to continuously close my eyes and go to this place, it was like a room that was bound by the sides of my skull. It is now much different in that the limitation of my skull or the sides of the room have no restraints. For the purpose of helping you understand and maybe experiment on your own, let's go back to looking at this as a space that has definite walls, top and bottom. Relax and see if you can feel the energy of your thought process as you drift or float into this space. I did not feel this energy when I first started to receive information, so I know that you can receive without recognizing the energy. When I first found myself doing this little exercise, it was very deliberate and seemed a bit hokey. With time, I began to find I could relax very quickly using this method. Being in this space, I would consciously try to push any and all thoughts away from the center point or area where I viewed myself. You may find it even more helpful if you picture yourself as a small person in this area with your hands being held up, pushing out any thoughts that may enter your space. As I would do this, I found that I could remain neutral or without any thoughts for longer periods of time. This state is nothing more than prayer or meditation or the now. The longer I was here, the less effort it took to keep the thoughts out. If you can maintain this state for a while, you will notice that your breathing will slow down, and for me, my heartbeat drops drastically. While here, many things can be done, not the least of which is going to sleep. And this is a very deep sleep. Often while traveling with friends for even short distances, I will go into this space to catch up on needed rest. If I now quit blocking the thoughts, I would begin to perceive or feel someone start to speak. Many times this was only conceived as a thought, but more often I found that I could hear a distinct voice or voices. These are very soft, quiet voices that have always given me what I would call my highest thought. Never have I heard any voice that was harsh, cruel, or mean. Many people claim they hear harsh voices, but for me, it has never happened. It took me a lot of practice and time before I could learn to distinguish these voices. When you learn to feel who is talking, you will also begin to recognize the light that emanates from the individual. The only way I can distinguish these voices is by their frequency or intensity. This, as I mentioned before, seems to be distinct to each individual. I also found that the more I experienced these frequencies, the easier it was to gauge the level or quality of light or enlightenment coming from the speaker. To my great surprise, I was able to think back on earlier experiences, like the one with Robert Benson, and remeasure or re-experience the light others are giving off. This ability to look back and see the light is a two-edged sword. On the one hand, it has been helpful to know what level of light is coming from someone giving me information. But on the other hand, I found myself judging those who were speaking by their level of light and putting them in boxes or giving them labels that I afterwards discovered in myself. Later on in my history, I'll share with you an experience showing just how embarrassing seeing yourself for who you really are can be. For now, if you are comfortable with this technique, practice it on a daily basis. If you find that you have a hard time concentrating on nothing, try it for a shorter period. When I first started, 1 minute seemed like forever, but with a little work, I could soon go into this space for 10 minutes and it seemed like 10 seconds. Just don't give up on yourself. You have immeasurable help on the other side supporting you in your efforts. This may be something you find hard to believe, but I assure you it is true. The more you work on this, the more you will know just how connected and interrelated you and God are. My wife brought me back to the present when she asked me what time it was. A few more minutes passed as we sat waiting at the church for others to pass judgment on our lives. Surprisingly, my anxiety was taken up in the reflections of my life, leaving me calm and much more relaxed than I would have normally been under such circumstances. Again, I began to reflect, and the video of my life seemed to pick up just where it had left off.